It's March 20th, 2025, and whether last year's congressional UFO hearings were a political stunt or genuine inquiry, our fearless editor-in-chief Jules Octavian sure found them attractive. This week, hear Jules' thoughts on why aliens might be giving us a wide berth and why they should stop by County Fence HQ to smell the forest. This is Gregaro McCool, the voice of County Fence Biannual Magazine, coming to you from deep in the wilderness of eastern Ontario, for those who prefer an oral tradition to a written one. The stories you are about to hear were released to our print subscribers in real time, but we're releasing one story from the past 2 years on the first and third Thursday nights of the month at 10, free for our new digital audience. Like, subscribe, leave positive reviews, and all that jazz to help bring Eastern Ontario's oldest and most prestigious boundary and fencing publication to a global audience. If intelligent life capable of intergalactic space travel exists, then it seems very likely they would avoid contact with us. At best, they may observe us like researchers trying to study wolves in the Arctic. Perhaps we have caught the scent, the odd glimpse, or even been put under for long enough to attach a tracking collar. But like humans, the other wolves probably don't believe that lone wolf either. Human wisdom would say that it's better to have wolves unaware of civilization rather than dependent on the dumpster at Taco Bell. If we've gotten that right, then those more advanced than us probably have too. The question then is, how do we show them that we are worthy of more than covert study? To my mind, the best invitation to extraterrestrial civilizations is prison reform. So perhaps I should explain. Were I, Jules Octavian, to be the emissary chosen to make contact with intelligent extraterrestrial life, and I should be because I'm old and dying in the pursuit of intergalactic diplomacy is one hell of a story, I would perhaps unsurprisingly invite them back to County Fence HQ. This is not because HQ is a special place, but rather that it is my special place. A place I am uniquely equipped to share the joys of and could likely do without language. I would bring our visitors to my deck where we would spend a lovely morning smelling the damp forest, which is the best smell in the world, before a leisurely afternoon ramble followed by a campfire where we would gaze at the stars the way sailors gaze at their craft from a bonfire on the beach. My publication is about fences, but I find the most alluring boundaries are the natural ones. Rivers prior to the technology to cross them, forests with difficult footing and swarms of things waiting to bite, climactic divisions, large bodies of water, and even our own atmosphere. Boundaries inspire wonder. Living where I do means I've likely stared at the expanse of the universe upward of 15,000 nights. The possibility of someone from that expanse visiting me, because I obviously cannot visit them, is extraordinary. The problem thus becomes how I would go about issuing an intergalactic invitation for them to cross my boundaries and spend a lovely day at County Fence HQ. In that spirit, I made a point to spend a lovely afternoon listening to the river with an excellent glass of scotch, a cigar, and this conundrum. Where the tables turned and I were looking to make contact with an entirely alien civilization, I would look to the way they treat their prisoners, knowing that at least for a short time I would have to be one. They say good fences make good neighbors, and I do believe that boundaries are important early in a relationship. I would not let a stranger wander my home unsupervised on the first visit. Perhaps after an initial chat at the front door I might invite them in, but we would have to work up to more vulnerable interactions. It seems prudent that an alien civilization would prefer that I remain moored in the harbor flying the quarantine flag, so to speak, until we had the measure of each other. In the case that this is not possible, I think it would be understandable that I be housed in a secure compound. Intelligent life approaching in a non-aggressive way would likely expect the same, and I believe an easy way to ascertain how they would be treated is to observe how others that need to be kept in secure facilities for whatever the reason are themselves treated. In the case of the United States, whose congressional hearings on UFOs initially inspired this article, the evidence is rather bleak. Prisons are often punitive, draconian, overcrowded, and even privatized. Refugees are eyed with suspicion and held in camps, sometimes worse than prisons. Often these days, under the same regimes said refugees were trying to escape. Mental health and rehabilitation centers appear to have come a long way, but that also depends on the patient's socioeconomic resources. It seems quite fitting that if a visitor landed in the United States from the great beyond, it would find itself under lock and key in some military or paramilitary facility. Some jurisdictions outside the self-proclaimed greatest country in the world are better, some are worse, but I would argue that none give the assurance intergalactic visitors would require to risk contact in anything but a clearly one-sided military campaign or an emergency. It is said that we receive what we send out into the universe. The message that we are sending at this time is that we are dangerous to those that we don't understand, often those who are most vulnerable. The front gate is open with signs proclaiming hospitality, but the state of the property indicates that it is not as safe as the residents believe it to be. Proclaiming hospitality with a loaded shotgun visible by the front door seems like a hangover from the Wild West, a time when the US and Canada were in fact developing nations, and security was the overwhelming responsibility of the property owner. Perhaps it is because I come from a place of privilege, but it seems that this is simply not the case anymore, and that what we are dealing with today is a cultural PTSD from that wilder time. But as they say, hurt people hurt people. As an appreciator of rural Canadian life, I come from a beautiful yet inhospitable region where the supply of land drastically outweighs the demand. A short distance north of my home, you will find a sublimely beautiful and rugged landscape, fit only for cottaging and mining. Land that the government often already owns, what we Canadians call Crown land. And in fact, I do live in a region of penitentiaries. There are several within an hour drive of HQ, and all of them are absolutely bleak institutions that signal life will be drastically different even once the sentence has been served. Why do they not resemble the cottage? Why are they not places of reflection, restoration, and support, centered around some beautiful lake where an inmate might form a new dream and get the support they need to achieve it? Would we not all be richer for having some of our most vulnerable people learn to better contribute, rather than how to better exist in the margins? In my 82 years, I have had the privilege of meeting some dangerous people. It is clear every time that they are the product of a failed system. Family, politics, education, economics, it doesn't matter. It is true enough that the choice of whether to continue unhealthy cycles is our own, but it is also true that many don't even see the cycle or don't feel that they have a choice. Crime is a shortcut, a coping mechanism, or a lack of knowledge. I've heard it called the crooked ladder. Perhaps the thief feels out of options, or that doors are closed to them. Impulse control is an inability to respect boundaries rather than an ignorance of their existence. Taking advantage of something is a lack of empathy, and a lack of empathy is a lack of knowledge. There will always be some people so broken that they cannot lead harmonious lives with the greater community, but disability is something to be supported, celebrated even, rather than punished. Scientists often point to the distances as a strong evidence that if we are not the only intelligent life in this vast universe, then it remains extremely unlikely they could reach our shores. To that I say that humanity as we know it is only 4,000 years old, while stars like our own sun can burn for 10 billion. The universe itself is thought to be 25 billion years old. In my own lifetime, we went from requiring a stationary engine to power my mother's washing machine to the average person being able to print a three-dimensional object designed by artificial intelligence on a whim in their study. Modern science only began 500 years ago and is progressing at an exponential rate. If I were able to live another lifetime, where would we be by the end? And what of civilizations that have had far more of a head start? I put forward that to extraterrestrial civilizations capable of reaching us, we are undeveloped and thus should be left undisturbed. However, if we wish to prove to those observing us that we deserve a seat at the table, the way to do so is modeling our hospitality with those who are most vulnerable, our prisoners. To any extraterrestrial life that may intercept this piece, the internet is a marvelous thing to this old man, may you consider this an invitation. It would be a fabulous honor if my humble fencing publication turns out to be the spark that begins Earth's intergalactic revolution. And you are certainly welcome to come bask on the deck and smell the forest with me here at County Fence HQ. As my favorite television show would put it, you come find me.